Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the September meeting of the Summit City Council. Madam Clerk, would you please read the adequate notice of compliance statement?
Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by the City Clerk's Office in preparation of the Council annual meeting notice dated January 8, 2018, which was properly distributed and posted per statutory requirements. Please be advised that the fire exits are to my right, your left, and at the back of the room. The City has a listening system to assist the hearing impaired. If anyone needs hearing assistance, please obtain the system at the dais and return it thereafter.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bowman?
Here.
Ms. Fox?
Here.
Mr. Gould?
Here.
Ms. Little?
Here.
Mr. McTiernan?
Here.
Ms. Ogden?
Here.
President Naidoo?
Here. Okay, I'll ask John Keyser to come up and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I'd like to lead everybody in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you please read the notices regarding closed session and hearings and comments?
A closed session meeting as authorized by state statute was announced and held prior to the start of this meeting, and the known items for discussion were listed on the published closed session agenda. Please be advised that council meetings are broadcast live on Comcast Channel 36 and Verizon Channel 30, and rebroadcast on Thursdays and Saturdays on Hometown TV on Comcast 36 and Verizon 33. When invited to speak, please come to the lectern, clearly state your name and address, spell your last name, and speak into the podium microphone so that your comments can be understood by all and properly recorded. Whenever an audience or council member reads from a prepared statement, please give or email a copy to the City Clerk's Office at rlicatis@cityofsummit.org. To help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit all to be heard, speakers are asked to limit their comments to approximately 3 minutes or so in length. Unless you are using an electronic device to follow the meeting agenda or need it for professional emergency contact purposes, please turn it off. Thank you.
Thank you. Now on to minutes for approval. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes of regular and closed session of July 31st, 2018?
I move to approve the minutes of July 31st.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions?
Abstain.
Two of us? Okay.
Aye.
On to reports, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much, Council President. Welcome, everyone. Welcome back from the summer, first day of school. So one of the things I want to talk about was that the school year has begun, and the Summit Police Department is asking all Summit residents to please pay attention when driving and walking, and to make safety a priority. Police officers will be visible at all Summit schools to enforce parking and speed limits. If you're driving, please remember to leave home a bit earlier to allow time to safely drop off or pick up your children without rushing. All Summit schools are in residential areas. We ask that you drive in these areas as if in your own neighborhood and on your own street. Have a wonderful and safe school year. Traffic calming measures. We've enacted several traffic calming measures over the past few months in order to enhance safety and promote calmer traffic driving, or calmer driving. We have installed speed humps to help lower vehicle speeds on roadways with significant vehicle, bicycle, and pedestrian traffic. The speed humps are located on Ashland Road and Woodland Avenue. An additional four-way stop has been added at Oakland Place and Maple Street near Lawton C. Johnson Summit Middle School. We now have 4 all-way stops in town with plans to add an additional four-way stop at Hobart and Springfield Avenue. If you're unfamiliar with how to proceed at an all-way stop, the rules are simple. The first car to arrive at the stop goes first. If cars arrive at the same time, the car to the right has the right of way. And if you're turning, you go last. We're going to be doing a video tomorrow, and that'll be posted on the city website and Facebook page for the city, for myself. People can like it and share it. We've not had four-way stops in Summit prior to this year, and we are getting terrific response, very positive response. So it's just an effort. The 3 E's of parking of driving, and as Chief Weck tells me always, is enforcement, education, and engineering. So we're working on all 3. Sometimes you don't want to take the engineering measures because, quite frankly, they're not inexpensive. but they were necessary with studies that we had done, and we're very confident that we made the right decisions. The junior members of the Summit Volunteer First Aid Squad are holding a car wash fundraiser on this coming Sunday, the 9th, from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. That'll be at the squad headquarters at 1000 Summit Avenue, across from Lawton C. Johnson Summit Middle School. All proceeds from the event will benefit the Alice Nichols Junior Member Scholarship Program, which was established in memory of Alice Nichols, a longtime squad member who was serving as president at the time of her sudden passing in 2000. And we'll be doing a proclamation about the squad this evening because September is Rescue Squad Month. And then lastly, over the past year, the number of residents that have been sharing feedback with me by phone, email, and through social media channels has significantly increased. I appreciate hearing from you by phone and email and through social media, and I know that the city staff does as well. My next Meet the Mayor event is going to be Sunday, September 23rd at the Farmers Market. So there ought to be lots of people there. And then, of course, my office hours are Wednesdays from 9 to 11 in the morning and 6 p.m. to 7:30 at night, and then Thursdays from 10:30 to 12:30 in the morning. But send me an email if those times don't work for you, and we can always set up an appointment. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. On to our City Administrator, Michael Rogers. Michael.
Thank you, Council President, and good evening, everyone. The Westfield Regional Health Department, who the city partners with in a shared service agreement, is asking for feedback from Summit residents on how it can improve public health in Summit. The survey, which takes approximately about 15 minutes to complete, and all answers are completely confidential. So please go to the cityofsummit.org website. The link to the survey is on the website homepage. The capital projects update from the Department of Community Services. The remainder of the streets scheduled for micro resurfacing will be completed in mid to late September. Residents will receive a notice by U.S. Postal Service mail when the date is set. For more information, you can also go to cityofsummit.org/construction updates. I know this one will be of interest to Councilmember Ogden. The doggy dip.
Oh,
Yes.
it is.
Dogs of all sizes are invited to Scotty McMuney's Doggy Dip on Saturday, September 15th at the Summit Family Aquatic Center. Dogs must be at least 6 months of age or older to participate, be current on all vaccinations, hold a valid license tag, and be accompanied by an owner that is 18 years or older. A liability waiver will also need to be completed. Only dogs will be able to enter the pool. Sorry, Councilmember Ogden. Please go to summitcommunityprograms.com to register or for more information. And lastly, the final Hot Summer Nights concert of the summer season with Brian Kirk and the Jerks will be held on Monday, September 10th at 7 p.m. It was a rescheduled concert that was canceled due to many days of rain we had this summer. And that's all I have for this evening. Council President, thank you.
Thank you, Michael. And for my Council President's report, I just wanted to share a few things that occurred during the August break when we weren't here, and a couple of additional thoughts with you. So in some ways, there's a common theme about the two people I'm just going to talk to you who had a vision for the future. First, on August 19th, some of us were able to attend a service to celebrate the 95th anniversary of Wallace Chapel on Broad Street. It was also to observe Reverend Dr. Florence Spearing Randolph Day and dedicate a historic register plaque that was erected on the church lawn. Our mayor gave a speech at the dedication ceremony. What was really interesting to me was the life story of Reverend Dr. Randolph, who was born in 1866 in Charleston, South Carolina. Not only did she organize the fundraising effort that led to the building of Wallace Chapel, not only was she the pastor for 21 years, not only was she active in the temperance movement and was a New Jersey organizer for the women's suffrage movement, but she did this all during a period of segregation, both in the North and the South. She was clearly a woman who had a vision for the future. Secondly, on August 19th, there was a memorial for Jean Fox, who passed away on July 15th. Jean was one of the founding members of the Summit Resource Recovery Corporation, Summit's first recycling group. Gene focused on recycling even before it was mandated because he had a vision for the future as well. Gene had also volunteered, among other places, the Reeves Reed Arboretum and served on the board of the Summit Area Public Foundation. I met Gene more than a few times, and he was active in local politics, but I think the most vivid memory I have of Gene is of him cruising down Kent Place Boulevard on his bicycle, because he used to just go fast down that road on his bicycle. Two people who, it was interesting that in August we had memorial services or dedications for that led very interesting lives here in Summit. Let me make two announcements. First, at the last council meeting, council formed the transfer station task force. Given the summer holiday, we wanted to make sure that people who were interested had a chance to submit their application. Thus, we're asking those who are interested in the task force to submit before September 10th, as we will consider appointments for this task force at the next council meeting. Secondly, the next Council on the Road is September 26th at the high school library at 7 p.m. For those of you who don't know what Council on the Road is, myself, the mayor, two members of council, I think it's Marjorie Fox and Beth Little, will be there for essentially a listening session. We go there, we listen, take your questions. If we have answers, we'll give you answers right there and then. If we don't, we follow up internally and try to get answers by the next Council on the Road. Some are easier problems to get answers for, some are harder, but we try. Finally, I wanted to give folks an update about the Broad Street redevelopment. As those of you who are following will know, we had put up a request for qualifications from developers with regards to the redevelopment project that we've been discussing, I guess, for the past 2+ years on Broad Street in the area between Maple and Morris. We had a deadline of the end of July for developers to give proposals for their qualifications. We've got 8 responses from 8 different developers. In August, a steering committee had conversations with each of the 8 different developers who had responded so far to the RFQ. The next step, which is open to all developers, is to submit conceptual plans by October 10th. Topology, our city planner, will be leading the effort to come up with a redevelopment plan, which we will share with the public, but hopefully it will include some of the conceptual ideas that we hear from developers. And as I said, this redevelopment plan will be available to the public, and as we go forward, we will keep you all apprised of developments there. And that's my Council President's update. Now, on to the ceremonial award. Madam Mayor, you have a proclamation.
I do. I have a proclamation declaring September Summit Volunteer First Aid Squad Month. So I'm going to come up, and Carrie and John, I guess, come and join me. So I'll face the audience. There's more audience members than council people here tonight, so sorry guys, I'm back. Okay, ready? A proclamation from the Office of the Mayor. Whereas health and safety are paramount to a sound community, and whereas since July 28, 1962, the Summit Volunteer First Aid Squad members have provided a public service to our community in support of health and safety. And whereas the Summit Volunteer First Aid Squad members have given an untold number of hours of service to Summit residents and patrons of our businesses, medical institutions, and stores. And whereas the Summit Volunteer First Aid Squad currently receives approximately 2,300 calls per year from Summit residents and from surrounding communities in order to provide mutual aid support. And whereas on September 11, 2001, 45 members of the Summit Volunteer First Aid Squad responded to a general recall and manned ambulances at the Summit train station and Hoboken to provide first aid and decontamination to the people who were returning from New York City. And whereas for 2 weeks after 9/11, members of the squad went to New York City in 12-hour shifts to support the rescue and recovery efforts at Ground Zero. And whereas The efforts of the Summit Volunteer First Aid Squad members, of whom there are 85, including junior members, should not go unrecognized. And whereas the dedication and hard work of the Summit Volunteer First Aid Squad members is saving the city of Summit over $1 million per year. Now therefore, I, Nora Radis, Mayor of the City of Summit, do hereby proclaim the month of September 2018 as Summit Volunteer First Aid Squad Month in the City of Summit, and in recognition of the Summit Volunteer First Aid Squad and the importance of all the good deeds contributed by its many volunteers for 55 years. And I ask all citizens to join me in praising these volunteers and lending the squad your financial support. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of the Summit to be affixed this 4th day of September in the year 2018. Before we do a photo op, which is imperative, because if we don't put it on Facebook, we weren't here. But before we do, I just want to also remind everyone here and in the audience that the First Aid Squad does not receive any taxpayer funding. So this week, next week, they will be launching their annual fund. It is an essential piece of fundraising for them because they don't get taxpayer dollars, and yet they save us a lot of money as taxpayers. And of course, they're always there for us. One would hope that we don't need them, but we all do at some point, it seems to me, and we're very fortunate to have them with us. And then the second thing I wanted to say is that they're looking for volunteers. It's a big deal. 2,300 calls a year is a lot, and you need a lot of people to man those shifts. So if you know of anyone, if you have interest yourself, if you know juniors, young people, high school age who would like to become part of the squad, please contact them, and they're ready to take your name, number, and information. So let's do this. Right here.
All right. We have two presentations tonight, the first of which is History of Summit Beacon. I'd ask John Keyser to come up and give us a brief history of the Summit Beacon. John.
Good evening. My name is John Keyser. I'm a member of the Summit Planning Board, the Sons of the American Revolution, and the Summit Historical Society. Early on the morning of June 6, 1780, 238 years ago, there was an incredible cannon blast emanating from the hills of Summit. The blast was heard all the way to George Washington's Continental troops in Jockey Hollow, and all the way to the Elizabeth waterfront. The sky was also lit up with an incredible bonfire, a huge fire that was also seen by the Continental troops in Morristown and the local militia in Elizabeth. What was going on? New Jersey was being invaded by 6,000 British troops and their Hessian mercenaries. They had just landed at Elizabeth, just south of today's Newark Airport. The blast and the beacon fire were alarms that were emanating from the Summit Revolutionary War beacon located at what today is 226 Hobart Avenue at the corner of Beacon Road, appropriately named, and Hobart Avenue. The alarms were sounded to alert the New Jersey militiamen who lived in the area and George Washington's Continental soldiers in Morristown. The cannon was nicknamed Old Sow, and the fire emanated from a major pile of logs and brush created by the local militia as ordered by General George Washington. The goal of the invasion was Washington's troops and supplies at Jockey Hollow. To get to Jockey Hollow at Morristown, the troops had to go through Elizabeth, Union, Springfield, Summit, and ultimately Hobart Gap. As a direct result of these alarms, as issued in Summit by the Summit Beacon, the local militia and George Washington's Continental troops were able to turn back the British invasion and send them back to Elizabeth. Unfortunately, though, the British were not done. In 2.5 years, they did it again. They came to the same route. This time, they got a little bit further into the township of Springfield. They burnt Springfield to the ground, as they had done in Union at the Connecticut Farms Church. The Summit Beacon was again resurrected in the British War of 1812 in the year of 1814, but never used. If you look at the Summit logo, it's a direct representation of the Summit Beacon. If you look at the shoulder patch of the Summit Police Force, it's another direct representation of the Summit Beacon. The Battle of Springfield was called by many historians the Forgotten Victory, but the battle is distinctly remembered every day in Summit with our logo, with our police patch, and we are proud to have the Summit Beacon in Summit. My associates and I are giving a more detailed presentation on the Summit Beacon on Tuesday, September 25th at the Summit YMCA. Everybody is invited. It's free. It'll be a great presentation, lots of detail. Thank you for your attention.
John, could you give us what you wrote, and then we'll put it up on the city's website? That would be great.
Say the date and time again?
Pardon?
The date and time of the longer presentation?
The longer presentation is September 25th, 1 o'clock at the Summit YMCA. It's free. Everybody's invited.
Cool. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
The next presentation is Melanie Cohn, the Executive Director of the New Jersey Visual Arts Center. Melanie. Former board member of the Visual Arts Center, Matt Gould.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. Hi, I'm Melanie Cohn. I'm the Executive Director of the Visual Arts Center of New Jersey at 68 Elm Street, Summit, New Jersey. The Visual Arts Center of New Jersey was actually founded 85 years ago by residents of Summit. And if you think of it, it's really a manifestation of one of my favorite things about Summit, which is the people here have a lot of heart. They're very civic-minded, and they've got a vision of what the city can be like in the future. And so we had a group of citizens between World War I and World War II who thought it would be wonderful to have visual arts training for the people of Summit and to have a place where people could go and see art. And so they created the Visual Arts Center, which is one of only 8 museums in New Jersey, right here in Summit, accredited by the AAM Museums, and also a studio school where about 1,000 students a week take classes during a regular semester. So one thing about arts in Summit that you might not be aware of is that we really do have a big impact economically. We have the equivalent of about almost 50 full-time equivalent employees at the Arts Center. They come to work, but it's actually like over 100 people. They come to work, and they go and they eat out at the local restaurants, they purchase gasoline, and then we have those 1,000 students that come here during every week, and a lot of times they also go to our local shops, they eat at our local restaurants. So that's something that we're really proud of, that we really do give back to the city of Summit. And along those lines, we have an upcoming partnership that we're doing with the Summit Police Athletic League and with the Downtown Summit, which is the Arts and Cars. So this is going to be happening September the 16th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. There'll be antique cars, and there will be a lot of artists there selling their handicrafts, whether they're jewelry, it might be ceramics, it might be paintings and drawings. And at the same time, there will be music all day long. They'll be performed live, and it's right downtown, all around the train station and along Springfield Avenue. So we hope that you'll all join us. And also, the Visual Arts Center semester begins September 24th, and we have classes and workshops. So you can go online and check that out at the Arts Center's website. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mary. Okay. Now, moving on to public comments. So this is the point in time in the meeting when council welcomes comments from the members of the public on topics that are not on the agenda. So if there's anyone in the audience that wants to make a statement, has questions, please raise your hand, come up to the microphone, identify yourself and where you live, and you have about 3 minutes, but come on up. Anyone? Yes, please, come on up.
Good evening, Council. My name is Joe Gallegos. I live at 14 Denman Place here in Summit. I was actually asked by Dr. Rubino to drop by tonight unexpectedly, so I apologize that we haven't dressed. My wife and I walked here from dinner. We moved here a couple of years ago from Oak Park, Illinois, which is adjacent to Chicago, which is a wonderful city. We were very sad to leave, but happy to be here in Summit. Chicago's motto is Urbis in Horto, which means a city and a park. Our street happens to be adjacent to the park line.
Joe, not to cut you off, but
Sure.
If we're talking about the park line, if you want to talk about it, that's great, but we're going to talk about it a little bit
Oh,
later.
I didn't know. Okay, sorry, I
Yes,
apologize.
so I don't want to cut you off, but if that's the topic, if you can talk anything else, that's fine.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
I'm basically here to speak in support of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're
That'd be
adjacent to
great.
it, so, you know.
We will just have it a little bit later in
Okay.
the meeting.
I'll-
Perfect.
I'll step down.
Thanks, Joe. Okay. Anyone on something that's not on the agenda? Okay, going once, going twice. Oh, yes, please, come on up.
May I speak about parking?
Yeah, absolutely, come on up. Sure.
Hi, I'm Lourdes Aboud. I live
If you wouldn't mind just bringing the mic right there.
Lourdes Aboud. I live at 39 Bryant Parkway. Just wanted to express my frustration going to Joseph A. Bank store. I found a nice little spot right in front with my husband. We went in looking for suits and shirts, realized my 90 minutes were up, had to go move the car, circled the block trying to find a zone that was other than the zone I was currently in. It was pretty frustrating because I had to waste 20 minutes separated from him at a time when he was wanting my opinion, to then move my car to some further away location. So I just thought that the arbitrary 90 minutes was really not wise for a city that wants to promote businesses and help businesses out. And I kind of left there wondering, even the realty office across the street, if somebody comes and they're talking about buying in our town, they're going to have to move their car. It's just a little frustrating, so I think that needs to be rethought, some of those time limits. I'm happy to pay, but to have to move my car and then find another one further away, it just doesn't make sense. So, thank you.
Sure, thank you. I'll actually address that because I think that there has been some discussion about parking. You know, sometimes we address things, sometimes we just listen. Huh?
Lots of discussion.
There's been a lot of discussion about parking. There's always discussion about parking, let's put it that way. But, you know, and here, I actually brought this down, which is, since we have historical things, this is a report from the Summit Planning report from 1944, okay? So in 1944, this is in the middle, World War II is going on, right? So D-Day happens in June of 1944. And the people of Summit here are talking about street traffic studies, and they talk about parking meters should be installed along Springfield Avenue from the railroad to Irving Place and all the side streets from a block or more from that avenue. So basically, if you look back in 1944, that's the beginning of when you have meters in Summit. But that is to say, this has been a long-standing issue. And so why do we have the 90 minutes, and why do we have the fees that we do? What we're trying to do, and this has been going on in discussions with the Summit Downtown Inc., which is a representative body of merchants who are, and as well as landlords, is to try to figure out how to increase turnover at the parking spaces that are right in front of the buildings. We have lots. We have the 3 lots in DeForest. So for instance, Joseph A. Bank is right next to one of the larger lots that is there. And the idea there is that you have 1 hour of free parking there. So if you wanted to just go there, or alternatively, you know, at the second hour, it's $1 and so forth. Idea is to have an increased turnover, because sometimes people just want to run in, do something, and that helps the businesses. And that's actually referred to here back in 1944, the same concept of trying to help businesses. So we constantly look at the issue of parking. It doesn't go away from probably more than 2 agendas of council, but it is also something that's done collaboratively with the downtown businesses to try to figure out what works best and what doesn't. It's always being tweaked, so there's nothing set in stone, but it's something that is looked at. But right now, the reason we came up with it, to answer your question, how did we come up with that, is that that's what kind of, in a way, the businesses wanted. They wanted people to be able to turn over quickly, and it seemed reasonable to have 90 minutes, and that's something, you know, that's the way it is. Anybody? Beth, you want to?
Or Mary.
Oh, sure, Mary, sorry.
Thank you, Council President. Just to echo what you're saying, being Chair of General Services, parking comes up all the time and has been forever. And we really try to hear your concerns, address your frustrations. As Council President said, there were a lot of people abusing the downtown Springfield Avenue parking. And that's not fair to business owners, and we need to create turnover. We need to have comparable pricing, and we need to be unified. And these kiosks now allow the city of Summit to be unified, south side and north side. When they first went in, parking services was we put them in and there were glitches. And we met over the summer, General Services, and met with the mayor and council president to address those. We put the 15-minute free on the front side of parking, and we have, I'll even show you, changed the screen that you see to make it much easier to read, which I think was confusing in the beginning, and we all noticed that was a bit of a hard time to read it. We got new signs that are going to go on the kiosks. I feel like it's in here, but they're going to be front and back so that you can see your zone. And if Springfield Avenue is all one zone, so that if you have one of the things about Park Mobile that you'll be able to do is set it as a favorite, and you don't even have to go to the kiosk. You can have it in your phone, put in your zone, and you don't even have to go to the kiosk at all. So hopefully this is, with the progression of the way things are looking in the future, this is to make your life easier, not harder. We did not put these in to say, to, give it to Summit. Not at all. We really, really wanted to make life easier for you. And the shop owners turn over business so that people could park. People can go use the stores, and still have the free 15-minute parking. And as Council President said, the 3 parking lots and the tier lot, because Joseph Banks, you could also go in the tier lot. For the DeForest, they're free for a whole hour. So we're really trying to encourage, and this Springfield Avenue is prime real estate. So we really, really wanted to make that more customer friendly. So we're trying everything that we possibly can to make things and the transition. We know change is difficult, but we're doing everything that we can to address concerns, hear your concerns, and at the same time do what's right for the city. So
Thank you, Mary. Beth, do you want to add?
I'll just add quickly to that. I am the other council member on General Services, which covers the parking authorities, so we spend a lot of time talking about that. I'm also a liaison to both the Summit Parking Advisory Committee and the Summit Downtown, so I hear from all kinds of different stakeholders in the town, from residents and business owners and people who work and commute and everything about the parking issues, and that's what a lot of our focus has been. I attended a planning conference last January, and I attended every session that was available on parking. So one of the things that really stood out to me from that session, though, was that one of the presenters got up and said, the biggest problem any municipality can have in terms of parking is to not have a parking problem. Having a parking and having demand for our town means we have a thriving downtown, we have people that want to use it. Unfortunately, we have a limited number of spaces, and without the large expense of building a garage or doing that, which would be a big upheaval for the downtown expense and other things, we have to try to be creative with the spaces that we have. The 90 minutes along Springfield Avenue are the prime spots, and those have been designed, those have been that way for more than 20 years, the 90-minute time limit. And so it's designed that way so that there's quick access for people to come in and out of stores and run errands, and that there's a lot of turnover so that you should be able to easily find a space along those streets if you want to do a quick errand and not to go to too much hassle for parking. There are other longer-term lots around the downtown. The tiered parking garage, you can park for longer periods of time, and the 3 DeForest lots, you can park for up to 5 hours, and you have the first hour free. So if you're running a quick errand or you're going for a lunch or an exercise class, feel free. The Springfield Avenue and the Union Place parking lots, the ones that used to have the meters, those are the places to go. If you're spending the day and you're having lunch and you're doing longer term shopping, looking for real estate, doing other things that take longer, check out the DeForest lots and check out the 2-tier garages, because those are the places to park more long term.
Thank you. Let me just add one more thing, because I think I've heard some people talk about why aren't our lots free and other towns that have free things, like for instance New Providence. But if you think of the proximity of our parking to where our train station is, right? If you look at a town like New Providence, where their train station is and where their main shopping centers are, there's quite a big difference. But for us, we are right, all of our parking is right next to one of the most valuable train stations also in New Jersey, at Morristown Direct Line, right? If we had open free parking, all we would end up having essentially is commuters come into our town, take up every single spot, and nobody would be able to get a single spot in town. So this is things that we go balancing. That my point is that, people say, oh, this is what's done somewhere else, why can't it be just implemented here? Because we have different concerns and issues that we need to balance between these things. And so parking is always something that's looked at, parking is always going to be something that's looked at, but as Mary and Beth said, we're working towards trying to improve the system that we already have. Okay, Mike.
No, just though to reiterate, and I know Councilwoman Little said this, it's one of my things that I do hear a lot about is, oh, I can go into New Providence and park for free. You can park for free in Summit. So, and if you think about that, as Council President Naidu said, that's actually kind of amazing given how dense our downtown is, along with being a transportation hub. But they've worked very hard to create those lots along the forest that have 1 hour free parking. I go there all the time. I'm too cheap to pay 25 cents for 15 minutes on a meter. So we do have free parking. I think a lot of times we don't do a good enough job making people aware of that, but those lots are there to be used for that.
And on the weekends, on the upper tiers of the lot that's behind Mondo, the second floor onwards are free completely on Saturdays and Sundays. Okay? Anybody else have another public comment on same subject, different subject, any subject? Okay. With that, I'm going to end the public comment section. Okay. Moving on. Ordinances for introduction. Okay. We have one ordinance for introduction. It's buildings and grounds. Councilwoman Fox. Oh, sorry. Would you read it, please?
An ordinance to amend an ordinance entitled Ordinance Granting Permission to Hold a Private Sale of a Portion of the Real Property on Block 3204, Lot 7, located on 1000 Summit Avenue in the City of Summit, County of Union, New Jersey.
Councilwoman Fox.
Thank you, Council President. Council adopted the underlying ordinance on May 1st to allow the City of Summit to hold a private sale of a piece of property along Summit Avenue from the Summit First Aid Squad to Morris Avenue, and it extends approximately 175 feet. Because the property is only 14 feet wide, it's not currently used for any purpose, and this current ordinance will amend the earlier ordinance to include the minimum purchase price of the property at sale, as required by state law. The minimum purchase price of the property is of $40,000 is based on an appraisal performed by the city's appraiser. I move this ordinance for introduction.
Second.
Great. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bowman?
Aye.
Ms. Fox?
Aye.
Mr. Gould?
Aye.
Ms. Little?
Aye.
Mr. McTiernan?
Aye.
Ms. Ogden?
Aye.
President Naidoo?
Aye. And this, the hearing on this ordinance will be held at the next council meeting, which is September 17th,
On a Monday.
which is a Monday, by the way. Now we're moving on to resolutions. The first set of resolutions are from Finance and Personnel. Finance and Personnel 5874. Councilwoman Little.
Thank you, Council President. The first finance resolution is to approve the 2017 Audit Corrective Action Plan. For those of you who are at our July meeting, we approved the actual audit, and we said that we would be coming back in September to discuss the corrective action that was recommended by our auditors. As we discussed at the last council meeting when we approved the audit, we noted that the 5 recommendations were all fairly de minimis. They're mostly accounting changes, and those have all been taken care of or in the process of being taken care of. And so I would like to also just once again recognize Marge Gerber and her staff for doing such a wonderful job with the city's books and presenting such a clean and great audit. So, and in correcting the few recommendations so quickly and so efficiently. So thank you, Marge. And I would recommend this resolution for approval.
Second.
Thank you. Comments from members of council? Comments from members of the public? Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Moving on, 5872. Councilwoman
Thank
Little.
you, Council President. This resolution is to cancel improvement authorization funds in the capital accounts. Going back to the audit suggestions, these are cleaning up accounts from long ago where we had authorized expenditures for a project and either never gone through with the project or the project was less than expected. And these are things that were authorized but never funded. So it's just to clean up the books and take them off the books. And it is one of the items that has been recommended by auditors in the past. So I would recommend this resolution for approval.
Second.
Okay. Comments from members of council? Comments from members of the public? Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving on, 5899, Councilwoman Little.
The next finance resolution is to authorize extension of sick leave with pay for an employee in the finance department. And pursuant to closed session discussion, I would recommend this resolution for approval.
Second.
Comments from members of council? Comments from members of the public? Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
5898, Councilwoman Little.
Thank you, Council President. The final finance resolution is another extension of sick leave with pay for a fire department employee, and pursuant to closed session discussion, I would also recommend this resolution for approval.
Second.
Any comments from members of council? Comments from members of the public? Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to safety. 5899, Councilman Gould, please.
Thank you, Council President. This resolution, safety resolution, is to authorize state contract purchase of new self-contained breathing apparatus for $98,586. These apparatuses have a lifespan of about 10 years, and so regularly we have to purchase new ones for the safety of our firefighters and for their effectiveness in fighting fires. So I wholeheartedly recommend this resolution for approval.
Did you guys hear a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any comments from members of council? Comments from members of the public?
I was just going
Oh,
to
sorry,
say,
Steve.
just so everyone knows, it is part of the 2018 capital plan as well.
Thank you. Steve.
Thank you.
Got your back.
Any comments from members of members of the public? Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving on to buildings and grounds. First of it, 5902, Councilwoman Fox.
Thank you, Council President. This resolution authorizes the submission of a grant application to the Summit Area Public Foundation for year 2 of funding for the Hometown Heroes program. So Council passed the resolution on July 10th to support a second year of the Hometown Heroes banner program, and that will be in 2019. In 2018, 50 banners honoring 100 veterans and active duty service members were displayed on DeForest Avenue. The funding for the project was through public donations. And the first year of the program was extremely successful. We have a waiting list of about 30 people who want to be recognized in year 2. But we have to do some fundraising now for year 2. So one of the no city funds are used in this project. So we need donations from the public. We're also going to be seeking the authorization of council to submit a grant in the amount of $9,325 through SAPF. This grant does not require a match from the city. I enthusiastically move this resolution.
Second.
Great. Comments from members of council? Councilman Gould.
Thank you, Council President. Just the Hometown Heroes was such a success and so much hard work from you and everyone else that was part of it. I certainly hope we can submit this grant, and I hope we win this grant because, just being there on that day and seeing the veterans and how pleased they were with the product was really moving.
Councilwoman Little, did you?
Thank you, Council President. Just to reiterate that, I've talked before about how wonderful this project is and how it touched so many people in town, but I just was thinking about it when I saw this grant application. I mean, I had people coming up to me over the summer, even as early as last week, someone came up to me and was talking about what a great project this was and how happy they were to have seen this in the town. So I think it's really had a long and deep impact in the town, and it was just a really great project, and I really appreciate all the hard work that went into it, and again, I would enthusiastically support this as well.
Mayor.
I just want to share one thing that Henry Bassman came to talk to us about the Hometown Heroes and just how it went afterwards, and one of the things that he told us, and I'm just repeating it because we had a very small audience that night. But one of the things he told us was that because of this and the recognition and the recognition that so many veterans started to reconnect, and many of them were older, and not just getting together in town or meeting for coffee, but on social media, and that they just thought it was such a great thing. They had no idea how many fellow veterans were in town and that were willing to be recognized. So I just thought it was something that none of us, I don't think, expected as an offshoot of this project. And so I'm just grateful to the people who organized the program. I did not. And I was just, thank you for all the volunteers who took care of it, and for the city staff who implemented it. So anyway, it was a great program, and I hope we get the grant.
Comments from members of the public? Let me just also close by reiterating, I think, what everyone has said. This is one of those things, you start off a project, you don't know whether or not folks come up to you and you say, okay, we want to try to do this, don't know what kind of reaction it is. But it is one of those things that just incredible, both the reaction that day of seeing folks and then subsequently the impact through the community and through the fact that I think they're collecting stories and going to put them up through the library. What a I referred back to the 1944 planning board study, but it is, if you think about it, we had some veterans there who were in their 90s who came. This historical memory that is passed through generations is very important. Councilwoman.
For those of you who missed the banners in person, you can see them. The city website has them, and also the library will be keeping an archive throughout the years, so you can go and actually see images of all the different banners. And it's really quite amazing to see, going all the way back, 100 years to present day with current active duty members. It's quite amazing. So just thought I'd add that.
Great, thank you. Although, with that, any further comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving on. The next one, I think we've tabled 5886. So that moves us to 5873, the third one. Councilwoman Fox.
Thank you, Council President. This resolution authorizes a grant application submission to the New Jersey Clean Energy Program, and it's for a local energy audit. So this is a program sponsored by the New Jersey Board of Public Utilities, and it's New Jersey's Clean Energy Program. And the audit is available at no cost to the city. And the city is proposing to audit City Hall, the library, the Public Works facility, Cornog Field House, and the Summit Volunteer First Aid Squad building. The city has also extended the offer to include the Board of Education, and they, after their board meeting, will be letting us know what facilities they would also like to be included in this. There are no matching fees for this, and there is funding available in the future if work is identified that can be done on any of these buildings. And it'll be at our option whether we decide to move forward depending on what the financing is or funding is. So I moved this resolution.
Second.
Thank you. Any comments from members of council? Oh, Mike.
No, just to reiterate what Councilwoman Fox said, that this is a great service that the state offers, and it's good to actually take them up on it. We've done this in the past as well, and they do come up with some things here and there that can really help save the city money as well as conserve energy. So it's a great program to use. So I wholly endorse it.
Great, thank you. Okay, any comments from members of the public? Any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving on. We've come to the memorandum of understanding between the city and the Parkland Foundation. Councilwoman Fox.
Thank you, Council President. This resolution authorizes the execution of a memorandum of understanding between the City of Summit and the Parkline Foundation. On July 26, 2016, Council adopted a resolution to execute an agreement with New Jersey DOT for the rights to a 1.2-mile section of rail line along the abandoned Rahway Valley Railroad line. The purpose of this was for the future development of the Summit Park Line. And the Parkline Foundation was established to raise funds to develop the park line. This memorandum of understanding delineates the responsibilities between the city and the Parkline Foundation associated with the development and maintenance of the park line. Under this agreement, Council will hold a public workshop within 90 days of the execution of the memorandum of understanding. The public workshop will offer the opportunity to gather public comment, including on the safety plans that are identified in this memorandum of understanding and the financing plans. And additionally, the agreement requires that Council will approve by resolution any further development of the park line. I move this resolution.
Second.
Comments from members of council? Let me give my thoughts about it, and then I'll open up for the public, because I think there's a fair number of people here that I recognize in the audience who probably are interested in speaking about it. I think one of the things that helps people think about any kind of project, and we should think about this project as being, basically we're trying to create a park, right? I mean, if this goes forward, the park line, there is no park there right now. It's a abandoned train line. And so we're trying to create a park, and that comes with its own sets of issues and that need to be thought about. One of the things that helps people to figure out how to do something, whether it's feasible, not feasible, what the issues are, is having some agreement that focuses the mind about who's responsible for what. And this is what this does. It doesn't necessarily get a predetermined conclusion about everything, but it does help to get to the point of understanding, okay, this is what the responsibilities of the city are, this is the responsibilities or the obligations that a foundation's willing to do. And so, for those of you who've read through the agreement, it's not a very long memorandum of understanding, it's relatively short, but it does spell out who has maintenance obligations, which is really the city, has long-term maintenance obligations, but the construction costs and associated with it fall on the foundation. And then there, as Councilwoman Fox said, there will be a workshop in which we will go through and talk about the safety issues or other concerns the public has. That will be the more kind of informal session, if you will, to discuss the various issues about it. But this is we've had discussions about the park line. Probably all of you in this audience have heard here and there about the park line. Until now, I don't think, if my memory serves right, we don't have an agreement per se on an understanding between the foundation's responsibilities and what the cities are. And I think this helps to set that framework for discussion. So with that, I'll open up for public comments, and Oh, sure, Joe, if you want to, you started your comments, so do you want to finish them, since I interrupted you?
Thank you, Council President. Do I need to introduce myself again, or can I just skip forward?
You did, Joe.
All right. I basically quoted Chicago's...
You were in the middle of quoting Chicago.
Yes, I was quoting Latin. I think that's where I lost you guys. Just from the perspective of a resident that will be directly affected by this, because our home is on the abandoned railway. My wife and we have 2 children. We take our dogs walking back there. We're in full support of this measure. New Jersey being the most urban state in America, I think any opportunity that you have to create a park within an urban space, despite what the sets of problems it may come with, ultimately I think is a benefit for the residents and for the community. So I trust that Chief Weck will address any security concerns. We live in a safe community. I'm really not worried about folks riding their bikes, walking their dogs, kids going, using the trail. That's what it's for. So despite that my property line abuts the trail and the park, I look forward to seeing what it looks like, and I'm very excited about it. So that's my comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, please come on.
Hi, my name is Jay Zhang. I live on 27 Russell Place. I really hope everybody should reconsider this park line issue, and everybody who supports this project, I think they should go walk along this line to see what it really looks like. So there are 2 things. First is it's already a park, a greenland. So or trees there, and second is it wise with some people up there. So in majority of this rail line, it's an elevated dirt bank. Many places it's like 45-degree slope, 45-degree slopes, sometimes elevated like 20 feet above ground, and the usable space on the top. In many places, about 10 feet. Okay, so if you build something, I understand the foundation will, for the construction cost, but to put people on something 20 feet above ground is associated with certain cost to secure it and the maintenance, all kinds of issues. Is it worth it? I understand we saw those wonderful skylines in Chicago, in New York City, in many big cities, but they tend to run along like major business districts. Let's say in New York City, that's first we saw this thing, the commerce developed along their avenue. Then they developed this skyline. All the cost, policing it, security. Look, a 10-foot wide bridge elevated 20 feet above ground. Okay, we know what we do, let's say in Cornell, Ithaca. For a bridge like that, they have to completely enclose it. Okay, somebody is going to climb over it. Okay, so, and also, yes, parks are very valuable. We all love parks. But Summit has no shortage of parks. We have, let's say, just anywhere along this line, it's probably 5 minutes away from a good park, really. So have this thing. Basically, to develop, send people up there, we have to cut down the trees on there, right? It will be less green. We have practically less green land, although we call that a park. And for my understanding is the local tax money, the best, other than maintain this place, is our schools. Frankly, when I look at our schools, and with today, the technology is advancing like a monthly basis, if not a daily basis, and a lot of things are actually a little outdated. So I think if we have this funding from the school, I don't mean the construction, I mean for the future maintenance, to security, the police, all kinds of issues. You know, should we spend this money on our schools, really? All right, it's my commentary. It's over 3 minutes.
No,
I'm
that's
sorry.
fine. Thank you, Jay. Appreciate it. Okay. Anybody else, please? Mary Jo.
I would first like to quote my professor when I was at graduate school at the College of St. Elizabeth, Dr. Vincent Aniello, and he said that 100 years from now, the population will think that what the practices that we did and the decisions we made are antiquated and archaic. Just like 100 years ago, we now think that the decisions that they made were antiquated and archaic. So I would like to say that I am not in support of this parkline thing. My family owns 5 homes in Summit, 2 on Springfield Avenue, 2 on Washington, and 1 on William Street. I would like to hear from an experienced realtor with multiple years' experience what this is going to do to the property values of my homes. I have read the proposal. This could happen and that could happen. It was worded very, very carefully. I would like to know also, when was the last time a project was done on the other side of town? I had so much crammed into East Summit. I am tired of things being shoved down our throats. We've had the low-income housing on Morris Avenue. When I first moved back to Summit in 1995, we had the Summit Soccer Club trying to put soccer fields at Bryant Park. Now I hear there's low-income housing going in by the Italian American Club on Morris Avenue. And I also hear there's, and I guess this is a private sale, so the city can't do anything about this, there's another apartment building going across from where the Roosevelt Gym used to be. Like I said, I think that that's a private sale and there's not much we can do about that. When was the last time something was built on the other side of town? In the Washington district, in the Lincoln district. Why does East Summit have to get everything? I am tired of this being crammed down our throats.
Can you just give your full name and address also?
Mary Jo Micucci DiFonso, 12 Washington Avenue and Summit.
Thank you, Mary Jo. Okay. Joe.
And in response to Mary Lou, I believe
Mary
it's
Jo.
a large senior citizen.
Ma'am, you have to address the council. Joe, you have to address through here, this way. Yeah.
I see, sorry.
You got it, that's it.
In response to Mary Jane?
Joe.
Mary Jo. I believe on River Road, across from Celgene, There's a huge property going up there for senior citizens, home assistants. That is on the other side. In Washington School.
No, this has to be, this is
Because
not
we
a...
can't record it if you don't speak into
and
the
it's
No,
not-
I didn't say anything.
No.
I didn't say anything.
Right. So we just have this one-way direction, if you will. Okay. Ma'am, that's Joan Brinkerhoff. Ma'am, please come up.
My name's Marion Cannon. I live at 67 Eggers Court, and I just want to say I think it's a fantastic idea, and I, wanted to sort of balance it out a bit as, in response to other people.
I'm sorry, you have to speak up. They can't hear you.
Into the
Speak
mic.
louder.
Yes, there, perfect.
So
You can just start again.
in response to the negatives, I just want to say I think it's a wonderfully positive idea, and I think it's great that we'll have the opportunity to walk into town, down to Bryant Park, without dealing with the traffic and the worries of, crossing over and pedestrian crossings and so forth. So I think it's great, and that's really all I have to say. I hope it goes forward, and I'm in full support.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir, please come up.
Good evening. My name is Charles Rotundi. I live at 45 Eggers Court. I have some serious misgivings about this Parkline project. I have some serious questions about the costs involved that the city will have to bear, specifically policing costs. How many more policemen are we going to have to add on for this? And all these things have costs, and if it's not actual new hires, what is going to be overtime? What is the cost that is associated with this? I'm concerned about public safety. I agree with the gentleman who made the point that the area of the park line near where we live is on an embankment, and I believe it's potentially very dangerous. What is the cost of insurance? Are we going to self-indemnify the city? I mean, we need to know what these costs are involved. Who's going to make sure that it's closed at dusk? We're going to have young people running around at night in the dark. I just don't think it's a very good idea. Maintenance. There already is garbage being strewn in that area. What is the cost of that? Of making sure that it doesn't become an eyesore. Is there going to be lighting? What is the cost, with regard to that? There's also the issue of this embankment that's behind the property where we live. People will be able to look right into the second floor of the dwellings, which is where the bedrooms are. I don't think that's really conducive to good quality of life and the maintenance of property value. I think that's a very negative possibility. Parking on Russell Place. There are going to be more cars. You can't park, you can hardly get through Russell Place as it is. It's a very narrow street. We need to consider that situation. Is there going to be fencing? How much is that going to cost? So I see a host of problems and possible expenditures that will go on forever. The city will have to bear this cost. This isn't a one-time cost. This will be year after year. Will this affect the taxes in town? I just don't think this is a good allocation of money. Recognizing that the group that is sponsoring this is going to pay for the actual work, I don't have an issue with that. But my concern is, what are the costs involved that the city is going to have to bear ad infinitum? And as principally constituted, as far as I know, the way this is set up, I'm not in favor of it at all. And I hope you'll give serious consideration to all these possible problems. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, please, come up.
Stephanie Gallegos, Joe's wife. I live on 14 Denman Place with Joe, obviously. I want to just mention that it's kind of a safety issue for our kids that live on that side who go to the middle school. Our kids have taken the park line that is now paved and has a nice marked path to go up through and onto a sidewalk to get to the middle school. There is no paved or crossing guard protected crosswalk for my children to get to the middle school. They were having to cross either at the unprotected crosswalk at Denman and Broad, or they had to walk down to Ashwood,
yes, Ashwood, and then cross back up and go across the 3 lanes that go down on whatever that is over there. I don't even know the name of the street. Morris, but then where it cuts down into Glenside. So there wasn't really a safe place for my kids to cross. Since they paved that portion of the park lane behind our house, I wasn't afraid to have them cross the street. I actually took it last year to Chief Weck and mentioned that there was a man who was continually flipping off my children and cursing at them in the unprotected crosswalk on Broad. This is a safe way for my kids to get to school. I don't have to worry about them anymore, and if they develop it and put a park there, I'll feel even better about our kids being able to get to school without having to worry about crossing those busy streets. And I think that's something that no one here has really addressed, that our kids need a safe way from that side of town to get to the only middle school in town. If we're gonna be a walking district, that's a safe way for them to get there. And I'm all for them walking through my backyard to get to school safely. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am, please.
Hi, Barbara Powers.
Please just
Oh.
speak louder. Thank you.
My name is Barbara Powers, and I live on Henry Street, which is a property that directly abuts what would be the park line. And I'm just speaking in favor of it. I appreciate the concerns that some of the other people have brought up about safety and cost and maintenance, but I trust that there would be a good group of people working together to solve those issues or work through them. But all in all, I think it's wonderful. I have no problem with it. My backyard goes right up to it. The walking to town is absolutely true. So many kids in East Summit don't have a safe way to get to school. It could solve part of that. And I think it's very forward-looking. And I don't think it's something that's being crammed into East Summit. I think it would be like a jewel in the crown of East Summit. I see it as a plus, really, all the way around. So, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am, please.
Lourdes Aboud, 39 Bryant Parkway. I read the proposal. I see the parking on Orchard as tacked on like a little afterthought. And I also see that the traffic on Bryant Parkway itself is going to increase. As it is, there's already a sign saying what hours somebody cannot make a left turn onto Bryant Parkway, which is ignored all of the time. And weekly, there are policemen that have to police that street and stop people because they're speeding and they turned when they weren't supposed to. And I see that this is going to increase that problem. Those of us who live on that street constantly have to be careful backing out of our driveways more so than other people because they park along the park and we have single car driveways and it's very difficult. People are speeding, and so when we look one way, look the other, start backing out, next thing you know, somebody's rounded the corner too fast and we have to stop and they keep going. So it is going to increase traffic, and it is a big concern for those of us on that street. It's an idyllic sounding idea, but the reality is the parking has not been thought out, and the extra traffic for those of us on that side has not been thought out. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Rob.
Good evening, Robert Rubino, 84 Prospect Hill Avenue. How's that, better?
Just louder, voice.
I'm president of the Summit Parkline Foundation. I first just want to thank all the members of council, including you, Council President, and Councilwoman Fox and Mike McTiernan, and Mayor, for helping us come to this, understanding. I think it was always implied, and now it's written out, and I think it's a good agreement. And I want to thank all the members of the Parkline Foundation and all the neighbors in the various neighborhoods who gave us input so that we came up with a document that I think is well thought out and clearly does outline the responsibilities. To the folks pro and con here today, I think ultimately this is and always has been intended to be an amenity for Summit, and in particular for East Summit. The phase one kind of warms my heart to hear Mrs. Gallegos talk about how her son uses it to get to school. In fact, one morning I was showing the park line to a visitor, and we had to part ways for 3 middle schoolers walking up to get to school, and that's the whole point. This is about connectivity, and we really want to encourage walking and biking in town. It kind of relates to the other resolution on the agenda about a bike rack. While there will be some parking, there's no proposed parking on Orchard Street. There's some parking will be at the different trailheads, but really want to encourage healthy connections to town. And you hear so much about walls these days. Well, this is about a connection. And that's kind of the theme and the spirit of the park line. It's wasted land, that's green space that we can really use to create an amenity for all of Summit. And I think Phase 1 is kind of a good model home for folks to go see what it could be like. And the neighbors have kind of just spontaneously adopted it. So I think that kind of gives you a good empirical data on how the whole thing might work out. Of course, always in concert with the neighbors and stakeholders in the community. But I think this is a good agreement, and we have time to develop it and take input and move slowly and thoughtfully. But I thank you all for your time and support.
Thank you. Yes, sir, please.
Evening. My name is Brian Steller. I live at 29 Acres Court. And we, as a group, met with Dr. Rubino, and one of the first things I asked his daughter, who he brought to the meeting, was would she like the public running around or nearby their backyard while she was playing. I think she was, 12 or 13. So there was this blank stare, and the answer was obvious. No, I don't want anybody watching me in my home. Well, Eggers Court is my home and my daughter's home and my wife's home, along with any number of people who are here tonight from the Eggers Court development. And so this 20-foot berm that they're talking about, where there's an abandoned rail line and green space, really is not. It's right up literally against my backyard, where from that 20-foot height, folks going by in their bikes and their walking can watch me barbecue or sit there trying to read a legal brief that I have to prepare or have to respond to the following day. I really don't want that. I don't want people looking into my daughter's bedroom. I don't want them looking into my dining room or my living room. And I don't want to worry about flashlights at night because someone has gotten past the fence or the entranceway or the trailway entrance. I really don't want that. I don't want to have to call the police and say, by the way, it's now 7 o'clock, it's dark out, and I need the police to come investigate this flashlight or this noise or this, disruption to my evening. And I will do it. I will do it every night that there is any kind of noise that isn't a deer or a fox or some other wildlife that we kind of appreciate where we live. And I would hope that everyone else that lives on Eggers Court will do the same thing, so that eventually you and Dr. Rubino and the foundation can sit here and say, this was really a bad idea to run this thing past this relatively nice group of homes in southeast Summit. So this is just the beginning of my comments. I'm sure I'll have more as this goes on and on. Apparently it will go on and on. But this is just a start. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir, please.
My name is Michael Smiley. I live at 25 Acres Court. This is actually the second time I've been before the council. I think I was called in at the last minute when we had that back in 2017. But I'm a little more experienced about what's been happening with this now. I, too, am from Chicago, but I've lived here for 20 years. This is actually my 20th anniversary in Summit. I was part of that meeting where Dr. Rubino met with the people in Eggers Court, and I had the same misgivings that Mr. Steller just expressed. But I've done a little homework. I've gone on both sides of that berm, both on the Celgene side, the private side, and the Eggers Court side, taken photos, and have some idea of a way that might make it more acceptable for the members of the Eggers Court to re-engineer what was originally presented to us as the pathway going across the top of the berm. In order to make that, my experience, effective, I'd like to be involved and have our community involved in the original planning, or at least to pick up where the planning is going now so that we have a real voice as to what the eventual final outcome of the pathway will be in the area between Celgene and Russell Court. I think that would, I won't say alleviate, but address many of the concerns that our little family have in that area. And I don't know how that could happen. I know there's going to be a public forum about all this. Right. And I think that to have us at the table with the engineers and the planners is going to make Dr. Rubino's vision more realistic and acceptable to the residents of the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Joseph.
Good evening. My name is Joseph Tarancio. I live on Crescent Ave. It's where the Lincoln Hubbard School is. So I'm pretty far distant from this particular project. I wanted to ask a general question of everyone. I saw relatively recently, although it was made quite a while ago, a documentary that was shown on PBS, I saw, and it was called From Rails to Trails. How many people, just by show of hands, have seen that documentary? And council? Fantastic. Rails to Trails is an hour documentary that was produced to illustrate the concept of Rails to Trails and documented probably about 15 different projects that were done with abandoned railroad tracks that were turned into trails, the kind of thing we're talking about, parks of different sorts. Of course, in my hometown, they have probably the most famous Rails to Trails is called the High Line in New York, and it relates very little to what we're doing in Summit. But I also lived in upstate New York. Someone was here was talking about the danger of a 10-foot high bridge. And I learned on Rails to Trails that there is a bridge very near where I lived, across the river from Poughkeepsie in New York, where they have a bridge that's about 150 feet above the Hudson River, that is about 15 feet wide, to which they supplemented. They made it 20 feet sometimes, but they kept it 15 feet a lot of times. No one has tried to jump off that bridge, which astounds me. It's now a park, that railroad bridge. It got on fire, and they decided they couldn't use it for a railroad bridge anymore, so they made it into a park. I also lived in an area in upstate New York near Syracuse, where they had transformed segments of the Erie Canal, and we used to have a joke in Syracuse. Whenever you looked at some place that was really beautiful, people would say, "Wow, that reminds me of Erie Street, Erie Boulevard." Has anyone been in Erie Boulevard in any of the upstate towns along that strip? I mean, Rochester has one, Buffalo has one, Utica has one, Syracuse has one. It's the pits. It's the pits. Erie Boulevards are the pits in upstate New York on that stretch. But they've put these parks in there that are like transformed these places from the pits to parks, to commercial areas. They just transform. So I just want to kind of put this out there and somehow get everybody who's involved in this. I really appreciate the speaker before me I believe that this kind of a project needs to be a community project.
Yes.
I think that maintenance, I mean, how many of us at one time or another have helped maintain a forest or trails that go through a forest? And you do that voluntarily. Buying into this project, if it's going to go anywhere, has to be something that the community does. That there has to be, you know, you're going to pick up brush and stuff like that. You're going to tear up weeds. You get a bunch of kids or a bunch of people to go out there on a Saturday or 5 Saturdays in the spring and 5 Saturdays in the fall, and you clean up the pathway. And if that can't happen, I really think if that can't happen, I don't think this park line can really happen until a community kind of gets involved. One of the things that happened with the Poughkeepsie Bridge that they did, they got a sugar daddy. They got someone who had a lot of money, and it was a Dyson Foundation. I don't know if you folks are available with that. They have oodles of money. And one of the scions of the Dyson Foundation loved the idea, and he threw a lot of money into it. But that wasn't going to do it. They had to have people on both sides of the Hudson River, between Poughkeepsie and Highland, to be committed. They have a squad of people who go and open up one end of the bridge and the other end of the bridge. I mean, that's how they do it. It's that community. So I just wanted to suggest that we somehow get a place where we can sit around and watch that documentary, because it'll stimulate a lot of imagination of what can happen with that, and sort of cut into a lot of objections which I have heard. So when someone talks about falling off a narrow 10-foot wide bridge that falls 20 feet, they ought to go up to the Mid-Hudson Bridge and see what it looks like 150 feet. By the way, the view from that bridge up and down the Hudson at dawn and dusk is incredible.
Okay, thank you. Bill. I'm trying to pick people who haven't spoken before. So I noticed there was a couple of people who've raised their hands who wanted to have a second shot at speaking. But I want to first go through everyone who hasn't spoken before, okay?
Good evening. My name is Bill Anderson. I live at 22 Cromwell Parkway here in Summit High School, class of 1969. I lived in Reston, Virginia for about 3 years, and we had a home that backed up to a hike and bike trail. Reston, as you may know, is a planned community. And I just wanted to relay the fact that the homes that backed up to this hike and bike trail traded at a premium to the other homes in Reston. About 50 feet from my deck was a 10-foot wide asphalt path, a little bit of screening, kids going up and down on their bikes, mom and dads with strollers, people jogging, and it was very active, and it was never really a problem for us as long as we lived there. And as I said, the homes on that traded as a premium, so I thought that might be interesting.
Thank you, Bill. Okay. Yes, ma'am, in the back.
Thank you. Elizabeth Fagan, 27 Hawthorne Place in Summit. I just would like to say very briefly that I'm fully in support of this project. I think it's a great vision for our community. It sort of encompasses one of the things that I love about Summit, or many of the things I love about Summit, brings our community together. The connectivity about which Dr. Rubino spoke is something that I value as a member of this community. It's one of the things that drew myself and my husband to stay here, and I think this will perpetuate that. I think it's a great vision for the community. So, thank you.
Yes, ma'am, please.
I'm Joy Collada, 24 Eckers Court. I am actually representing the board at the Summit Square. You've heard from many of my neighbors, and their concerns are valid, but I wanted to represent those also within the community that are interested in it as well. I mean, we like their concerns addressed, but we also want to be part of the process. But there are some that are very excited about it as well.
Thank you very much. Okay. Anybody else who hasn't spoken before? Yes, ma'am, please.
Hi, I'm Diane Wardell. I live on 31 Bryant Parkway. And I just want to make note that the park itself is used by a lot of elderly people and their elderly dogs. and a lot of dogs. And it says that if the people are going to be biking there, it's not going to work out because there's going to be a lot of conflict. And these people really like their park, and I think they look forward to going there. I see them every day in the morning, sometimes 4:30, 5 o'clock. And besides the increased traffic, I don't really think that having people biking at a speedy way is going to really work out for them. That's all I want to say.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody else who hasn't spoken before would like to speak? Okay. Mary Jo.
Now they've opened more cans of worms for me. Okay, so my question for you is about the documentary that you saw.
The way we did this, just direct the questions this way. and
Well,
then-
I'm thinking that how many of these park lines in this documentary went through residential areas and how many are still active and not abandoned? And the two women who live on Bryant Parkway addressed the traffic, the light at Morris Avenue. You're not supposed to make a left off of Bryant Parkway during school hours to go into Springfield, okay? If it were me, I would take my chances too, because if you sit at the light at Morris Avenue, you may sit through 3 lights before you're able to make a left turn. So if I had to get into Springfield, I would take my chances and go to the end of Bryant Parkway and make a left. If a cop stops me, okay, I'll get a ticket. But rather than sit at the light at Morris Avenue for 10 minutes, sitting through 3 or 4 lights trying to make a left. So, and the other woman who made a comment about a project in somewhere other than East Summit, we're talking 5 projects that have either been addressed or not come to fruition. There have been 5 projects total since I also graduated from Summit High School, by the way. 5 projects that have not come to fruition, but were introduced in East Summit just since I have moved back here in 1995.
Thank you. Anybody else who wants to make a comment? Okay. Consider public comments ended. Okay. Now, members of council, further discussion.
I just want to start out by thanking everyone who came out tonight. Whether you're in favor of the Parkline or you're not in favor of the Parkline, to see so many Summit residents who cared enough to give up your Tuesday night and come sit through the really exciting parts of our meeting that came before to talk about this and to give us your opinions. It's really very valuable, and I want to thank you for that. I also want to say to both those in favor or against, I, for one, have not made up my mind in any way about the Parkline. I've listened, I've spent a lot of time looking at it and researching it. I think there's some wonderful aspects to the project. I also have very significant concerns about privacy and safety and costs that have not been addressed yet, so I have in no way made up my mind for or against the Parkline. And tonight's vote is not for or against the Parkline project. So we've listened to all of you, and I'm going to keep all of your comments, and I'm going to remember them and think about them a lot as we go forward in this process, but this vote tonight is not in favor or against the Parkline project. Instead, this vote tonight is in favor of a memorandum of understanding between the city and the Parkline Foundation, and I'm going to wholeheartedly support that. And I'm going to tell you how I'm going to vote right now. I'm going to vote yes. But that's because the city already took possession of this land, and the Parkline Foundation was already formed and is raising money. And up until this point, there's been no understanding between the city and the foundation as to whose responsibilities are whose and how they're going to work together and how this process is going to move forward. And what this memorandum of understanding does tonight and what we're voting on tonight, it's a structure as to how we move forward and as to how we listen to all of your concerns and address all of the things that have to happen if this project's to go forward or if we decide not to go forward. And it just gives us a structure and a framework and a clear understanding of whose responsibilities are whose. So this vote tonight, and I want to just make it clear to anyone who's listening and anyone who's either for or against, this vote tonight in behalf of all the members of council is not a vote either in favor or against the Parkline. It's in favor or against having an understanding between the city and the Parkline Foundation, and that I am wholeheartedly supporting.
Thank you, Beth. Anyone else? Marjorie.
I agree with Councilperson Little's comments, and I think that the point of this was we spent a lot of time going back and forth about who was going to do what and who was responsible for what, and I think it's important that we know if this project goes forward, how it's going to go forward, what is the city committing to, what is the Parkline Foundation committing to. And I've heard a lot of your comments about wanting to be involved, and I think that's another thing that we really value here is the public input. This is not something we want to, as Mary Jo DeFonso just said, cram down your throats. This is something we want to be an asset. If this goes forward, it should be something that the community thinks is a benefit. And there are a lot of ways that we can address concerns, and I think we need to keep hearing your concerns, and we need to work through this. And it's really an iterative process. It's not, people have referred to a plan, and I'm not sure which plan you're referring to, because the city at this point does not have a plan. There may be something on the Parkline Foundation website that you're referring to, but we are viewing this as something that's a back and forth with the community. We will take your input from the workshop, and we will work on addressing all the concerns if this does go forward.
Now's not the time for any more public comments. We've done public comments. Now's the time for council. We'll try to address some questions right through our comments, hopefully. Go ahead, Mike.
Thank you, Council President Naidu. I'd also like to echo Councilwoman Little's thanks for the community to come out. Even people who aren't here, I've received a lot of emails and spoken with lots of people about the pros and the cons of the Parkline. So it's great that we live in a community where people feel that they want to be engaged, and I think part of it is because I think it shows that people do have a voice. Meetings that, I've gone to, freeholder meetings, there's never any back and forth with people in the audience, and therefore a lot of people don't even bother to go. So I think it's great that we live in a community where people can feel engaged and feel that they have a voice, and that they can make their concerns heard. On the memorandum itself, this is a document that doesn't say that there will be a park line going behind someone's house and there will be trees and a line. That's not what this is, as Councilwoman Little said. However, it is an agreement that does lay out what the city's responsibilities are and what the foundation's responsibilities are. I have been involved, I think, in this project as a council person since then Council President Rubino brought this up several years ago. So I have a pretty good historical background on this. Initially, my thought around this memorandum was this was sort of a belt and suspenders operation. We've had debates about this, whether it was necessary or not. The way it's written, I'd like to thank Council President Naidu for putting this together. Clarity is not a bad thing. Having an agreement in place that people understand who is responsible for what, and not just the people who sit on committees, but also the people in the audience and at home on their watching TV understand whose responsibilities are what is important too. So having a document around that is a good thing. So I applaud the document in and of itself. One thing I think that's important around the document is it does also lay out some things that were brought up amongst the people here today. Safety concerns. There's already been discussion, I think several years ago, from the police chief and the fire chief about what their thoughts are. This document asks that gets more formalized, so the community will be kept abreast of any safety concerns that the fire and the police department think around that, and that's, again, a good thing. The other thing I think is very, very important is this idea of further civic engagement. Just full disclosure, I am a fan of the park line. I've thought long and hard about it. There's a lot of reasons that people have talked about here around being a connectivity, a connector between East Summit and the rest of the community. It's an amenity. I stress that. It's a park we're talking about, not a waste hazard. The cram down is the last thing I would think about when I think about this. It does promote safety. It promotes the ability for people to travel across busy intersections. And I think it's also something that supports healthy living. I think that's a reason why both Overlook and Celgene are so behind the project. They do want, they want people who work there and are in Overlook, even convalescing there, to be having some green space. So there's a lot of reasons I support it. That being said, there are a lot of concerns I still have. And there's a lot of input that still needs to happen in order for these things for this to come to fruition. But I think the important takeaway from this is that there will be many opportunities for further public input around screening, around safety. Someone mentioned insurance. We've already had our GIF look at this, and this would be covered under our current policy with no additional premiums. But there's many, many things, I think, that I wouldn't live next to it. So I don't have the same concern, but I want to listen to that, and there will be input around those concerns if this does continue to move forward. But I will say I'm very confident that there'll be many opportunities for people's voices to continue to be heard around this.
Thank you. Anyone else? Oh, Mary, please.
Just very quickly, I am in support of this resolution this evening because I think what it does, as Mike said, it adds clarity. But I would encourage going forward that we continue not only to have clarity but transparency, so that people are feeling a part of this process, are feeling like their concerns are heard. And I think that the Park Line is cognizant of that, and I think that they'll make every effort to do that. But I think this is a great step to the process, and we'll see where it ends up.
Steve, please.
Thanks, everybody, for coming in. And I'm going to echo what my partners up here have said. And having lived along one of those bike trails 15 years ago, I experienced the pros and the cons. And I was involved in the development of the trails further out. And to that point, we were able to bring our concerns as a citizen for safety, for productivity, and for health benefits. Again, this is all being addressed in here. We have safety discussions, we have budget discussions, we have design all outlined in this document. So thank you for coming, and also thank you for your involvement and expressing your concerns, and I'm sure that the foundation and the city will work with you on addressing them.
Thank you, Steve. Anybody else? So let me close this discussion. And I want to thank my colleagues for their comments, which I agree with. So where we are is, there's been, as Mike said, Parkline has been a long history going on, but that has been kind of an ad hoc decision-making about what's going on, from my perspective. And what this agreement does is, it doesn't just make it for what happens in this council, but what happens in the next council and the council thereafter. It gives a process, and it gives, as Mary said, transparency to that process. You guys now know we are going to have a workshop. We will announce it. You will, I'm sure, all come. Maybe there'll be more people that will come. And hopefully what that workshop will do is these same issues that now that you have raised, that the chiefs have heard, that will be part of the discussion. How do we solve it? Are they solvable? Are there things that are not solvable? How do we address those things that are not solvable? Does it work? Does it not work? But that's a kind of an open process that I join my colleagues in thanking you all for coming, whether you're in favor of it or against it, because what this is a community project. It has to have the support of the community. It has to be built up from the ground up for the community to accept it. We're all residents of the same place. We all share the same town. And so it's a question of how do we get to a place that people who have an immediate interest in, right? The people who live right next door. As Mike said, it's not behind my backyard, it's not behind his, it's not behind any of ours. We totally appreciate the fact And I've sat on the planning, I sit on the planning board as well. There's plenty of times that developers come in, there's projects that come in, and I, if those of you who have seen me on the planning board know, I argue for residents because I believe firmly in the concept that your property is probably your largest asset. And we're not going to do things that will harm your asset. It's not our intent. Our intent is to do things that will help everyone, including the people who live there. And so part of this process, part of this workshop, will be a discussion of all these things. We will take feedback, and then it will be up to professionals to come up with solutions and ideas and float it, see what they cost, see what's doable, what's not doable. But this is a part of a process. We're now taking only one step. But this agreement is a critical component to that. Because without an agreement, the next council, the council thereafter, can decide to do things without having a process around it that you guys can then turn around and say, wait a second, you told me this is what it is. It's not enough just to have just talk. There needs to be a written document. Written documents holds people's ideas together. People know what their expectations are. That's what this achieves. So with that, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, moving on. Works. Councilman Bowman. Wait, I'll take a break. I'll take a break for a minute in case people want to leave. For some reason, I think there's some people that want to probably leave. So I'll take a 2-minute break.
You mean they don't want to hear me make a speech? Come on. So what do we want to pass?
Back in session.
We can
Okay.
whip right through.
Okay, we're on to Works 5875. Councilman Bowman, please.
Well, thank you, President Naidoo. Resolution 5875, this resolution is to award a contract to replace the 25-year-old cooling tower used to cool City Hall. Pretty good tonight, wasn't it? Basically, it's a 25-year-old piece of equipment that, as we know, is inconsistent within the building. This contract was awarded to ACP Contracting out of Fairfield, New Jersey for $113,000. It's included in the capital budget. One good thing to think about is a cooler City Hall. The equipment will, since we're replacing 25-year-old equipment, will be more environmentally and economically and financially friendlier. So I move we accept this resolution.
Second.
Okay. Any comments from members of council? Comments from members of the public? Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Works number 2.
Okay. Resolution 5876 is to award a bid for the Hobart Avenue Section 1 improvement project. The contractor is Safali & Son General Contractors out of Nutley, New Jersey. Beat out one other New Jersey contractor. This project is basically going on Hobart from Springfield around to Franklin Place. There will be road, water, sewer, and other utilities will be inspected, as well as the sidewalk, and curbing will be also addressed. At this time, I move to accept this resolution.
Second.
Thank you. Any comments? Yes, Matt, please.
Thank you, Councilmember Bowman. I just want to say, sometimes it seems like we cram a lot of the high dollar stuff at the very end of the agenda. I think we should move it up in front, although I am in support of this one.
Okay.
There's a process.
We'll try to figure out where to put these things on the agenda.
Yeah.
But, okay.
We'll go right after finance.
Substantively, you're okay with it?
Yeah,
You're
I'm just
okay?
saying, perhaps we could arrange them by
dollar amount?
By dollar amount. Sometimes we go through a $2,000 grant, and then at 10 o'clock at night, we're talking about it.
But there's no one here.
I know.
By the way, it's 9:30. It's not that late. We're
Okay.
Yes.
Mike, please.
Just one declarative thing, Councilman Bowman.
Yes.
Section 1, just for the people at home, where is Section 1?
Section 1 goes from Springfield Avenue around to Franklin.
Right. So this has been an area that has had water issues for quite some time, and I know that the people in the neighborhood have discussed this. There was, I know, several years ago, there was talk that they were going to do something on their own. But so this is a project, I think, that I know there's a queue for this to happen, but I'm very happy that this is going to finally get done.
Paul, when, if you could come up, when will this project start, and when is it anticipated to end?
I had that
So,
there.
if it is approved tonight, we're hoping that we can get some of the drainage work completed in the fall of this year. If not, it would have to go into the spring of next year. But the remainder of the project, if the drainage is completed in the fall, would take place then spring into early summer of next year.
Great.
So the curbing, sidewalk, milling, paving.
Perfect. Okay, great. Thank you. Any comments from members of the public? Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Okay.
Works number 3.
Works number 3, this is directly right to you, Councilman Gold. Resolution 5747 is works where we spent, on the last 2 resolutions, this one is we're saving some money here. The Blackburn Road is, we're having a change order in the amount of $74,648.01. It's a reduction in it. Basically, we were able to save over $30,000 related to asphalt that was not needed in the project. And also, we were able to rehabilitate several of the infrastructure access points, so we saved some money. Again, that was a savings of $74,648.01. I move we accept this resolution.
Second.
Thank you. Any comments?
Thank you, Councilman Bowman, and well done to all those involved. And again, I would say that this is news that people should hear when they're here.
On this
Thank
one,
you.
I'll agree with you. This should be the first thing on the agenda.
That's a good one. Good news, bad news, good news, right?
Okay. Since there's no members of the public here, it's awkward to keep on asking for comments, but in case somebody walks in, I guess, any comments? No. Further discussion? No. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, general services, Councilwoman Ogden.
Okay.
Number 1.
This first resolution is to authorize the submission of a grant application to the New Jersey Department of Community Affairs Bureau of Recreation Opportunities for Individuals with Disabilities, or ROID. The application would continue funding for the Special Needs Coordinator position and certain other programs related for the year July 2018 to June 2019. This grant has been a really important contributor in allowing our TRICAN and special needs programs, the basketball, the soccer, the social skills programs, keeping kids involved, and it also benefits 11 other communities that pay into this as well. So this is in the amount, grant application for $18,700 for the 2019 year. I so move this resolution at this time.
I second.
Any comments from members of council?
I'd just like to comment that I think the TRICAN program is a great program, and I think it's also a great example of shared services in a sort of non-traditional way, because we've got programs with 11 different towns, and it broadens the recreational opportunities for children in Summit and all the other towns, and I just think it's a great program, so I just wanted to say that.
Nice. Thank you. Okay, Beth.
I want to reiterate that too. TRICAN is really a jewel in our community, and there's so many kids with special needs that benefit from this program, but they also have a wonderful mentor and volunteer program that they set up, and there's mandatory training. And so it's really a partnership where the kids that are participating in the programs really benefit, but so do the mentors and volunteers who are also kids their age in the middle school and the high school. They also get just as much benefit or maybe more from this, and it's just a really incredibly great program and benefits many, many people. Wholeheartedly support this.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any comments from members of the public? No. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, general services 2.
Yes, this resolution is for a change order in the amount of $5,550. The company putting in the turf did not anticipate the amount of stone needed, which was less 200 tons. Thank you, of stone needed over and above what was requested. So at this time, I would like to move this resolution to authorize change order number 1 and final to Shaw Sports Turf.
I second.
Comments from members of council? Comments from members of the public? Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I will entertain a motion for the consent agenda.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Good. Any comments from members of council or the mayor on new business discussion? Anybody? Mike?
Thank you, Council President Naidoo. I would just reiterate and echo what you said earlier about today was first day of school. For those watching at home, please drive carefully. I mean, we say this every year, but particularly as children are going back to school, it's even more important. And remember, it's not just Summit's, our public schools, we have private schools in town as well, and just keep an eye out and leave 5 minutes earlier, as Chief Weck always says. Thank you.
Thank you.
10.
Anybody else? I'll give a plug for the Summit Public Arts, which is having their annual gala on September, somebody will help me out? 22nd, exactly, at 1 DeForest, I think. Yep, 1 DeForest. And for those who are watching on television, you will recall that the Summit, the Public Arts Committee came in front of council and showed us some of the incredible sculptures that they work to get into our town. It is based purely on private donations, and it is something that is not only aesthetically beautiful for our town, but has a real impact on property values and what people perceive of this town. And so I encourage people to attend if they can. And with that, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.